Okay, so today we talked about physical changes versus chemical changes. And we need to distinguish between physical and chemical changes. The thing that we need to remember is chemical changes are the ones that we need to remember, okay? So there's 4 things that constitute a chemical change that we need to understand. And that is if the substance is burned, if it's burning, if it's digested or digesting, that means you eat it, or an animal eats it, or a lysosome eats it, or it's digested. If something is rusted, and if something is cooked, like food. Okay? So what you do is, if you're looking for a chemical change or a physical change, if you have a question on an FCAT where it says, which of the following is a chemical change, look for these 4 features. And if it's not any of these 4 features, then you know it's a physical change. And physical changes are changes that are reversible, like a change of state. So if you go from a solid to a liquid to a gas, you can reverse that and go back from where you were. So if I take an ice cube and I melt it into a liquid, I can change that back by actually just cooling the temperature of the liquid to get the solid again. And similarly, if I go from a solid to a gas, by heating it, I can go back from a gas to a liquid by cooling it down. And this is what happens in the water cycle. We're constantly getting changes of state back and forth from solid to liquid to gas and then back again. So if it's reversible, then it's a physical change. Okay? So if you don't change the chemistry of the object, then it's a physical change. So for water, it's water, frozen water, liquid water, and water vapor. So it's a physical change. And I usually say that if it doesn't change what it is, then it's a physical change. So if you tear a piece of paper, it's still paper. If you break a glass, it's still glass. So those are the physical changes. And the chemical changes are things that you can't get the substance back. So if you burn a piece of wood, you can't get the wood back. If you digest a piece of broccoli, you can't get the broccoli back. If the metal is rusted, you can't get the metal back. And if you cook, like say for instance an egg, you change the chemical properties of the egg. So, and you can't get it back to where it was before. So chemical changes tend to be non-reversible, okay? And you also need to remember that there are indicators of chemical change, and usually there's a gas produced, there might be a precipitate, and sometimes there's energy given off, like a heat is formed. That's a good indicator. And so what you need to do is check for these signals. If you see any of these, then you know it's a chemical change. But really, if you say, okay, is this burning? If it's burning, then it's a chemical change. Is this digesting? If it's digesting, then it's a chemical change. Like a worm that eats the scraps in a compost heap, it becomes a chemical change because he takes those scraps and he changes them into the component elements of the food, and that's what makes your soil so good. If your bike rusts, you can't do anything about it. That metal is gone. Hopefully it doesn't rust so far that it becomes dangerous, but the metal is no longer the metal. It's a new substance called rust. So chemical changes are those that are non-reversible, and usually a new substance or a new chemical is produced.